Hey everyone, Tyler here. Just a quick content warning. This episode does make mention of sexual assault. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual assault in any form and is in need of support, we encourage you to reach out to the National Sexual Assault Hotline, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, online, and at 1-800-656-4673. Hey everybody, it's Tyler Esselman.
And it's Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11, the podcast where we invite someone who just loves music. And they love music so much, there's an album that they listen to a lot. They've listened to it so many times that they think it's perfect.
So perfect, in fact, Michael, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
No way, Jose or anybody else. How you doing, Tyler?
Pretty good over here. It's a beautiful day. I think I'm gonna do some cleaning today. Might do a little bit of baking. I'm in baking mode right now because of Bake Off.
Okay.
It's like my Super Bowl Bake Off. So yeah, I got a nice little day ahead of me. How about you?
Oh, it's mid-semester over here, and got a show going up, and
yeah.
Well, actually, by the time this episode airs, the show will have closed. So,
oh, really?
So if we're making it seem like it really is the time that this episode goes live, what I should say is I'm just enjoying some downtime now that my show is closed. It's real great. It's super awesome. All the leaves are gone. So,
but this is a peek behind the curtain, everybody.
Yeah,
we do these
exactly.
asynchronously. So we make it happen. We make it happen however we can.
Asynchronous. That is a word that was not used as much before the pandemic. I feel like that should have been like the Merriam-Webster word of the year at some point. Asynchronous.
Yeah. I agree with that, and it's also a coding thing though. So there's like it's a very much in the vernacular there. But we're going all sorts of places right now. We got a great guest. And an album by an artist that you have a great love for. And so I'm excited to share that with our listeners. Michael, tell us, who are we speaking to today?
We are speaking to Janice Rowland Radway. Janice is an actor, singer-songwriter, guitar player, and mom. Originally a Jersey girl, she moved to Philadelphia 20 years ago to pursue a career in the arts. After about 10 years of performing in plays, independent films, and training videos, she transitioned to working full-time as Associate Director of the Standardized Patient Program at the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. She lives in the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia with her husband, Alan Radway, and amazing daughter, Clarabelle. It's Janice.
Janice is a treat. She's the best.
And she's part of, back when, I was first in Philly and had started a theater company with some people called Flashpoint Theater Company. She was very much part of that community. I think she was in at least 2 Flashpoint productions, maybe more. And she was in a show that we briefly mentioned in the episode with a mutual friend and friend of the pod, Peter Varga.
I think Peter might come on someday. I'd like to have Peter on someday.
Yeah, what album would he talk about? Huh.
I actually have some ideas.
If you're listening, Peter, start thinking. We might be coming for you.
Yes, we will. But yeah, this is a great artist. A great artist who I wasn't terribly familiar with before this, except for by reputation. And listening to this album has been really wonderful for research. So hope it will spark some joy for people. And I feel pretty certain it will. And let's get into it, shall we?
Let's shall. Janice Rowland Radway, welcome to This One Goes to 11. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. So happy to see you. I think the last time I saw you, I was still in Philly, of course. And when we worked together, where you got to pour a bucket of blood on God, what was his name? Oh my God, I forgot his name. Mike Manley. You poured a bucket of blood on Mike Manley.
Yeah.
In that show.
You haven't lived until you've poured a bucket of blood over someone.
Yeah, must have been an Osinski joint.
We won't explain why you poured a bucket of blood. We'll let the listeners do some Googling. They can figure it out. Well, let's not delay. Let's not keep our listeners in suspense in case they can't read the episode description. Janice, would you please tell us what album hast thou brought before the tribunal today?
Today, I'm going to talk about Tori Amos's Little Earthquakes.
You brought me back to not pre-gay days, like early gay days. And dear listeners, just so you know, this week there will be a special Back to One episode where I talk in more detail about my connection to Tori Amos. Oh yeah,
you're gonna love it. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I'm gonna try not to give away too much of the special ingredients here, but yeah, I got so many. I'm sure off recording, Janice, you and I could talk for like hours about this album and this artist.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
And you also have me, who this is pretty much, I was aware of Tori Amos, who, just as part of the larger landscape of music, but also, this was really my first concerted listen to this album and like kind of deep dive on her. So I'm excited to hear, what your takes on having known her for so much longer than I have. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We have a wonderful segment. It's such a nice little segment for the people who may be like me and weren't that familiar with Tori Amos beforehand, to give them a little refresher. Michael, what's that segment called?
That segment is called A Beginner's Guide to Tori Amos's Little Earthquakes in 60 seconds. And
60 seconds.
This week, Tyler is doing it. So he's going to try and sum it all up. And Janice, you, before we evaluate your case for whether or not this is a perfect album, you get to evaluate Tyler's case in terms of how well he does at condensing everything down to 60 seconds. Using whatever scale you choose, like we're all about different rubrics around here. So
as structured or not structured as you want. Let it ride.
Yeah, feel free to embrace your inner Montessori should you want to do that. Yeah.
Tip of the
Tyler.
tongue, teeth, and lips.
Okay, you're doing your warm-ups. You ready?
I'm nervous. About this one. Okay.
It's all good.
I'm ready.
Okay, 60 seconds on the clock, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
We heard you like your femme superstar musicians a little prodigal, fairly mystical, at times inscrutable, and always and unfailingly emotional. Then we need look no further than the one and only Tori Amos. Born Myra Ellen Amos into a Methodist household and based from an early age in Baltimore, Maryland, Amos's prodigious talents revealed themselves practically immediately as she was able to pull her little 2-year-old butt up onto the piano bench and play songs she had heard a single time. As her nascent musical voice began to develop through her own compositions, she became the youngest person ever admitted to study classical piano at the Peabody Institute at age 5. No, the track didn't skip the age 5. She was eventually asked to leave, badass, because of her interest in rock and pop music, which would allow her to spread her musical wings and carve out her own space in the musical landscape of the time. Little Earthquakes, her full-length debut under her own name, saw Amos wrest control of her own image and musical direction from her label with soul-bearing lyrical intensity that set the standard for the burgeoning femme singer-songwriter movement of the 90s and established Amos as one of the grand dames of all things weird, virtuosic, intelligent, and progressive to this day.
All right.
Wow.
Swinging for the fences.
I appreciate your intro there, Tyler.
Wow. Okay. I tell you what, Tyler. I give you 88. 88 out of 88 piano keys.
Oh, excellent. I love it.
Fantastic. I really appreciate how you talk about her upbringing, because that's a huge part
essential,
of who
right?
she is, how she plays, where she went, what she writes about. And I appreciate that you talked about how she defied genres and she was like ahead of her time. Yeah. All that stuff. So
awesome.
Excellent job.
Thank you so much. So that's 88 out of 88 piano keys on the board for you. That contributes to your case for this album's perfection. But before we get into the album and Tori kind of more specifically, let's talk a little bit about you, Janice. We just met. We've just met virtually. So this is a great opportunity for us to ask you, what is your relationship with music? How does it live in your life? What sort of companion is it to you?
Well, it's always been a big part of me. My dad was a former musician. So there was always music playing in my house. And my mom loves to sing. I have 2 older sisters, and the 3 of us joined choir, and from an early age would sing together, harmonize. We would sing to yacht rock, basically, which is what it's now called, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to put 600 points on the board for yacht rock being a part of it, as it should be.
Yes. So I did choir. I did all the musicals in high school, but I never really had any formal training. I learned guitar from a boyfriend in college, and soon after that started writing music. And then when I moved to Philly, I started playing in open mics and things like that.
Cool.
So music is just, I put it on and it relaxes me. It makes me get in touch with myself, and it kind of can do whatever I want. If I want to like kind of wallow in my melancholy, I can do that. If I want to psych myself up, I can do that. And it's just when I'm not feeling well, I put music on and it's like, okay, I get back to myself. So.
Medicinal.
Yes.
What was the scene like when you were on those open mics? There's a very vibrant open mic scene here in LA for comedy and all that. What kind of music were you listening to at those open mics?
Lots of singer-songwriters talking about their feelings,
Had to be, right. Yeah.
And I did some of that, but I also did a lot of funny songs and some like R-rated songs, which made people laugh, and that kind of relaxed me. I have a performing background. I'm more of an actor than a singer-songwriter musician, but I think the comedy just kind of helped me get the room, and totally. It kind of helped made up for the fact that I'm not a very, hugely skilled guitar player or anything like that, or even singer for that matter. I have no formal training in singing. I just kind of do what I can.
That's my school too. Definitely. I'm definitely
yeah,
right
nice.
there with you.
Do you play a lot of music around the house now, like with your daughter?
I do. She loves it. She's very musical herself. I'm trying to teach her guitar, but it's hard with her little fingers, She has a little junior guitar, and she just likes to strum and shout out. But she knows Beatles songs, which is like how I first learned songs on guitar. So she loves to sing, and I did a lot of it during the pandemic. I did like a virtual open mic, which really saved me because that was a dark time, y'all, as you know.
Oh yeah, goodness, yeah. Still processing that.
yeah, still recovering.
Yeah.
But yeah, playing open mic around, so I would play all the time, and it just gave me something to work on and strengthen my voice and learn things. And
we haven't. I don't feel like we've talked a lot about open mics on the pod here, but I do think it's such an untapped. There's so much at an open mic: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Whether it's comedy or music or whatever it might be, there's great opportunity and great danger.
Totally. Well, I think the one that I went to was very supportive. It was really laid back. Awesome. It was at Fergie's. Fergie's Pub. Oh, Michael knows. Is one of the best bars in the city. It's been there for a long time, and Sweet. It's upstairs in this little tiny dive, but it's got such character.
9,000 points for Fergie's.
Yes, Fergie's amazing, and he's like a Philadelphia celebrity, and if you meet him once, he will always remember your name. He's that.
Yep.
He's that person.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But anyway, I know there are other open mics that are a little more competitive. Like I played at the World Cafe Live open mic once, and something happened, and I had my pickup in my guitar fell, and people just stood there like figure it out. I'm not helping you because they had a competition of whoever won the night, and then the winners of those 4 people competed, and whoever won that got a showcase. So I've been at those too, and those are not as fun.
Fergie's Pub's still open, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I thought at one point during the pandemic it was at risk for a hot second.
Yeah, it was. And a lot of bars and restaurants didn't make it. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people kind of donated, and then they were able to eventually reopen in a sort of limited way, and outdoor. Well, they don't really have outdoor seating, but they made it, But
the parking lot right next to Fergie's is outdoor seating.
Al fresco.
Come out to our patio.
Yeah. Well, why don't we pivot now to talk a bit more about about how you discovered this particular album. I mean, because Tori's not a guitarist; she's a pianist. So I guess I'm wondering, do you remember the moment that you discovered her and specifically this album?
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
All right, so picture this: New Jersey, 1992. I was in my basement and I was watching 120 Minutes on MTV.
Oh yes,
it's alternative, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just hanging out by myself in the basement, and all of a sudden, I see this gorgeous red-headed siren, like coming out of this box, this like wooden box, and like singing "Years Go By, Will I Still Be Waiting?" And I was like, who is that? And how can I have more of that? And what is that? And what? So I was like, I've never heard anybody like her. I'd never seen anybody like her. And I immediately went out and bought the album. I scoured for every like B-sides, singles back then, CD singles where they had all these like extra tracks.
There's a ton for this album, a ton of B-sides. There are,
and like one of them is my absolute favorite, and it's like so rarely played, but one of my
Which
favorites,
one?
Here in My Head.
Oh yeah.
Deep cut. Yeah.
You were a completist. I respect it. 10,000 points for going the whole way on it.
Yes, absolutely.
So did you then become, we sort of talk sometimes on this podcast about people when they become fans, then they become like obsessive about and learning everything about them and like trying to be like an expert on them. Was that sort of the road you went down with her?
Yes, it was. I listened to and taped on my tape recorder. Like she was interviewed on WMMR, I think it was. No, not MMR. I'm sorry. I forget the name. DRE. Okay, I was in North Jersey, so it was a New York station, but WDRE was like an alternative station in the 90s. And she was interviewed, and I taped it and like listened to it over and over again. So I heard about her upbringing. I've heard about how she started playing this singer-songwriter stuff, which wasn't like cool back in the early 90s. It wasn't a thing.
Yep.
There was like Carole King back in the 70s or whatever, but like it wasn't like a thing at this time. And I swear I won't start every sentence with like, you have to remember this was 1992.
No, context is everything. Yeah. Context is everything. Also, I think chronology is important with her, because one of the things that Michael and I were talking about is like, who do you consider Tori Amos contemporaries really? Because I was like, Were Rufus Wainwright and Amy Mann contemporaries of her, or did they come after? Because we talked about Amy Mann last season, and I'm like, it feels like, and we dig the hell out of her, and so it feels like there's a lot of shared DNA there, but it's almost a chicken and an egg kind of thing, if I'm reading it correctly. Obviously, I'm showing my age here, but like that's the impression I get.
That's it. One thing they do have in common is they were both in these like rock bands before they started out on their own. I don't know if you know this, but because I'm a super fan, before she was Tori Amos, she was in this band called Why Can't Tori Read, and it was Can't with a K. Yeah, and there are some cool songs in it, and once in a while she'll like play one at a concert. Yeah. But and she was kind of trying everything. She used to act too, so she was like trying this and that in Hollywood, and then just decided like, this is not me. This is not my authentic self. And then she started doing her own thing. And I think Amy Mann absolutely did that too. Yeah. But Amy Mann was a guitar player, mostly guitar. She has some piano. Different. Mm-hmm. But Tori is totally piano based, and that's just like, it wasn't like a rock thing.
Well, and if you were to ask Tori about her own influences, I think she gets compared to Kate Bush a lot. She resists that. But I think if she were to say there were an influence, at least early part of her career, I feel like Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin.
I was just about to say. You're absolutely right.
And she's even covered. I know she's covered "Thank You." I'm sure she's covered one or two of. A Whole Lot of Love, and she covered "Whole Lot of Love," which is crazy. Yeah. That's a crazy cover.
Oh my
God! I'm going to give you both 15,000 points for that
one. Thank you. And she actually did a duet with Robert Plant. Down by the Seaside.
He knows how to do it, doesn't he? Because he did the Alison Krauss one too, and that Alison Krauss Robert Plant album. Like, say what you will about how corny it is or whatever, but I think it rips. I think it's really good.
Yeah, and she said, teenager, and she would like listen to him and be like, "What is this?" And it was like very sexualized, and she was like, "I'm feeling all these feelings, but I'm a minister's daughter. I'm not supposed to feel these sexual feelings." And that's a whole thing in Tori's music, but she said she finally met him, and she said something like, "I've like fantasized about you," or something like that, and he's like, "Well, it's not too late," He said something like that.
Dirty.
Oh, that old dog.
Just like a man, right? Just like a man.
So many Zeppelin songs, though. I remember, like, I got into Zeppelin. Crazy enough, I actually got into Zeppelin around the same time I got into Tori Amos. So when you really listen, I remember thinking, you're listening to the lyrics and being like, he's talking about squeezing my lemon, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like this is how could you get more obvious than that?
Exactly.
What you squeezing there?
Yeah. I think the line is that she squeezed my lemon till the juice runs down my leg.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Oh, Robert.
My
Plant.
Mother's listening to this podcast. No, she'd love that. So since Kate has been brought into the room, let's address, I guess, that comparison. Were you at this time, Janice, aware of Kate Bush, or was that somebody that you knew pre-Tori, or was that somebody you discovered post-Tori?
I think I knew her pre-Tori, and I knew Running Up That Hill and Heathcliff, and I guess I could sort of see when Tori sings in that upper register. Oh, okay, they both sing up there. And that wasn't really done at the time. And Kate has some rocking, some rock in her stuff.
Big time.
And Tori absolutely has rock in her stuff, but I think that's kind of it. And
that's it, yeah.
And Tori's just so much, and I don't mean more or less like she's better, one is better than the other, but I just mean there's just so much more to her. So I heard that. I was like, oh, maybe. And then I just kind of forgot about that.
Tori seems to be more public. She just seems to be more public than Kate. And which I think, for good or for ill, we just seem to know more about her. Maybe that's part of it.
Probably. I mean, it's interesting because, Tori, I've listened to a couple of your episodes and one was Radiohead. They're like one of my favorite bands. So awesome. We have that in common. But, talking about, you have to remember, this was 1992. Yeah. So when alternative music was like, alternative music. And I think, Mike, you said this, like at one point, it was like, you could hear like, Third Eye Blind and Metallica. And you'd also hear Tori Amos on the radio and be like, yeah, that all makes sense that they're all playing at the same time, So it was like, but it was still she was still kind of on the fringes. So she was never like top 40, it was just like, you had to kind of be in the know. And, she's a little kooky, she's a little odd, weird. So I think some people would see interviews and be like, what's she talking about? Like, she's talking about her fairies flying around, or like, what? I don't get it. A little obscure. So I think some people may have like judged her and labeled her as some kind of flake, but I think she's a genius.
Her early interviews she's a fascinating interview because, like, even though I know some people did think she was kind of kooky and crazy, but like every time I watch them, I think, oh no, she's like gaming the system in some ways. Like, because I mean, I even read to reference something really specific on her third album, Boys for Pele, she has that song called Professional Widow.
Yes.
Which everyone said was about Courtney Love. And she even did an interview many years later, and the interviewer said something to the effect of like, oh yeah, and that song that you wrote about Courtney Love. And Tori Amos says, allegedly, and then like gives a little like smirk. It's like she knows exactly what she's doing.
That's savvy. I like that. The other thing I was wondering here was like, I guess is like, what is she like live? It's one of those things I haven't gotten a good sense of what she's like live from my research, So how is that for you? Are you many times, only once in your life sort of thing? What are we talking here?
Okay. I first saw her It was 93, or
right in the
93
pocket.
or 94.
Wow.
I'll give you 500,000 points for that, just for seeing her at that time.
So Under the Pink came out. So was that 93 or 94, Michael? I think maybe it was 94.
I think it might have been 94, but because 94 was the
Okay.
year that all the amazing albums came out.
Okay. So it was then. So she had 2 albums out, but Under the Pink she was like promoting, but she played all her stuff. I saw her at the Beacon Theater in New York City. And
Iconic.
it is a religious experience for me. Now you have to, when she plays, you have to see her play because she plays in a very unconventional way. She doesn't like sit to the side and have both her hands here and then kind of look. What she does is she takes her front leg and swings it around so she's straddling the piano bench. Yes. And you get a nice shot of that. And then she's like, you know, and then in her after her third album came out, Boys for Pele, she added this organ. So she has an organ behind her. And at some points she plays both at the same time. So one hand on the piano, one hand on the organ. We're like, how in the world are you doing that? And belting it out and looking amazing and sounding incredible. She played at that time with a band, or was it just solo? I can't remember. I think she played with a band. I think I've mostly just seen her with a band. So she has an amazing drummer and guitar player, and they add this incredible sound to it. But early in her Little Earthquakes days, it was just her on the piano. And I have seen her, I can't count, but pretty much for almost every album that she's put out.
Every album?
That's
almost
great.
Wow. Even that like the Strange Little Girls, that like cover album, and like the classical one, which my God, how am I not thinking of right now? So I probably like 15 times or something like that.
Holy moly!
Yeah.
I don't know if I know anyone else who's seen an artist that many times. A single artist. I think you might get this one goes to 11 gold star. Right, Michael? Do you know anyone else who's seen any band that many times?
Not that many times.
15 times?
Yeah.
Holy shit. All right. I'm creating an award. You get the this one goes to 11 steadfast concert goer gold star. That's what you get. I also gave you 600,000 points for I've got one hand on the piano and the other's playing the organ.
Funny you should quote that, because that is actually the tour that I saw Tori on the first time when she toured with Alanis Morissette.
Yes, I saw that too.
She definitely did have a band. You know, it's actually possible that we might have. Wait, where did you see her? Did you see her in North Jersey or South Jersey?
Garden State Art Center, Homedale.
Then we were at the same concert together.
OMG.
Stop that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Goosebumps. I have I have literal goosebumps right now.
Wow.
Did you see her on the tour for, I can't remember the name of the album, but it's the one where she played all the different alter egos, the one where she kind of upset some people by the way she performed Me and a Gun?
I did see the album, and I did see the tour, but I didn't hear about getting upset about Me and a Gun.
Something about she like came out and she sang the song, and she was like playing this sort of like youthful character while she sang it. And she was brandishing a knife while she sang it. Maybe she only did that at certain dates, because maybe some people got upset about it. But I wasn't able to find too much about it, but I found a couple like some audience reactions to it, and they were like, ugh, because I was looking more about the history of that song before this episode.
Which is
because I was unsure how much we want to talk about in great detail, but we can definitely do that.
I think we need to mention it, but so American Doll Posse was the album.
Yeah.
I did see that. Actually, I was working on a Flashpoint show when that tour came, and Meg Williams was like, I was like, I have a Tori Amos concert I have to go to. And she was like, I really need you to be at rehearsal, because I was also doing another show. I think I was doing Three Tall Women. And I was like, okay. And she's like, well, I can let you out early. I was like, okay. So I missed like the first 45 minutes of the concert. Alan was there, so I joined later. But
thanks,
anyway.
Meg.
Meg, I love you. And it was worth it because the show was awesome.
Oh, good. This is a pro Meg Williams podcast.
Yes.
I adore her. I know you do too. And but yeah, that's my Flashpoint connection to that album.
Okay, let's listen to a little bit of Tori, shall we? Janice, what have you chosen as your standout track from this album?
Precious Things.
Okay, say no more. We're going to listen to it. We're going to let our listeners listen to it, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it on the other side. That's the end of part 1. If you access this episode via our YouTube playlist, you're about to hear our guest's standout track. If you'd like to jump ahead to part 2, you'll find a link in the description of this episode.